They were Hollywood's favorite couple, funny, warm, and seemingly unbreakable. Then, in 2017, it was over. No courtroom drama. No screaming headlines. Just a quiet statement and a lot of unanswered questions. Years later, Anna Faris finally opened up, and what she said was nothing like what anyone expected. It started in 2007, on the set of a comedy film called Take Me Home Tonight. Anna Faris was already a recognized face. The Scary Movie franchise had grossed over $800 million globally, making her one of the most visible comedic actresses of her generation. Chris Pratt was a different story. He was grinding through supporting television roles, small parts, low-budget films, talented, but unknown. And yet, something clicked between them almost immediately. Their relationship grew quietly, away from cameras and red carpets.
No staja paparazzi moments.
No joint magazine covers. Just two people figuring each other out while figuring out their careers. By 2009, they were married in a private ceremony in Bali, Indonesia, far from Los Angeles, far from the spotlight. But here's the thing about the spotlight. It has a way of finding you anyway. In 2012, their son Jack was born nearly 2 months premature. He spent weeks in neonatal intensive care, and both Faris and Pratt later described those weeks as the most emotionally intense of their lives. The experience changed them. It pulled their focus away from careers and towards something far more important. For a moment, they were just two terrified parents hoping their son would be okay. And he was. But the world they returned to was already beginning to shift beneath their feet. That same year, Chris Pratt quietly began a transformation that would alter the course of everything. Behind the scenes of his lovable, bumbling role on Parks and Recreation, he was dieting hard, training harder, and auditioning for something much bigger. In 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy hit theaters. Peter Quill, Star-Lord, made over $773 million worldwide. Overnight, Pratt wasn't just a funny guy on a sitcom anymore. He was a global movie star. And that changed everything, but not in the way most people think. Anna Faris, meanwhile, was building something steady of her own. In 2013, she began starring in the CBS sitcom Mom, a role she would hold for 8 seasons and over 150 episodes. It was meaningful, consistent work, but it was rooted in Los Angeles, in a traditional television production schedule. Pratt's new world looked completely different. Jurassic World filmed across multiple international locations. It opened to over $500 million in a single weekend and eventually crossed $1.6 billion worldwide. Promotional tours stretched across North America, Europe, and Asia for weeks at a time. 2 careers. 2 completely different rhythms. And the gap between them was getting wider. But that wasn't even the hardest part yet. Starting around 2014, tabloids began spinning a story that neither Faris nor Pratt had written. Pratt was filming Passengers alongside Jennifer Lawrence, and the gossip machine did what it always does. It manufactured chemistry out of proximity. Rumors spread that something romantic was happening between the 2 co-stars. The stories had no evidence. Lawrence herself later went on record saying she felt really guilty because the rumors were entirely fabricated and she knew Faris was being hurt by them. Pratt never acknowledged anything inappropriate either. But the damage wasn't really about truth. In her 2017 memoir Unqualified, Faris admitted that those recurring rumors, specifically the ones surrounding Jennifer Lawrence, had gotten to her more than she expected. She'd always thought of herself as someone who didn't get jealous. But watching her marriage become public entertainment, being discussed and dissected by people who knew nothing about her actual life, that was a different kind of pain. And what made it worse was the powerlessness. Responding only made the stories louder. Staying silent let people fill in the blanks themselves. There was no winning move. By 2016, something had quietly shifted. Neither of them confirmed it publicly. But the tabloid narrative had already started treating their marriage as a relationship under siege. Too many absences, too many separate appearances, too many weeks spent on opposite sides of the world. Then came August 6, 2017. The statement was posted simultaneously on both their social media accounts. It was brief, carefully worded, and said almost nothing specific. They had tried for a long time. They were disappointed. They were committed to co-parenting their son. There was no blame.
No dramatic revelation.
Just an ending, quiet in exactly the same way their beginning had been. And that silence, for a media culture hungry for scandal, was almost deafening. In the months that followed, both of them held that same careful line. During a 2018 appearance on Dak Shepard's Armchair Expert podcast, Faris talked about the difficulty of the experience without assigning fault to anyone. She focused on what came next: co-parenting, communication, and creating stability for Jack. Pratt, in his own interviews, said only that divorce sucked, but emphasized that Jack's well-being was the priority above everything else. The legal divorce was finalized in October 2018, with no contested filings, no public asset disputes, nothing unusual except how unusually undramatic it all was. Then, in June 2026, Anna Faris sat down with Variety, and for the first time, gave the world something close to a real answer. She didn't name a villain. She didn't reveal a secret. What she said was far simpler than anyone had prepared for. I was feeling sad. That was it. After years of speculation, theories, and tabloid archaeology, the truest explanation she could offer was also the most human one. But she didn't stop there. She talked about what decades of visibility had done to her sense of self. I've been on a spectrum of fame for 26 years, she said, so I would be naive to think that it hasn't shaped who I am at this point. And then came the line that said more than any headline ever could. Reflecting on the scrutiny she'd lived under for so long, she said simply, "But, the scrutiny." Not a long speech. Not a carefully crafted statement. Just an honest, exhausted acknowledgement that being watched constantly, analyzed constantly, theorized about constantly, it takes something out of you. One thing that helped her survive that period was something small and personal she'd built for herself. In 2015, she launched a podcast called Anna Faris is Unqualified. She described wanting just 4 people to listen, to create what she called my own secret community. In an industry where every word gets filtered through publicists and camera angles, the podcast gave her something rare, a direct, unmediated connection with real people. It became, she said, her avenue outside of Hollywood. And during a time when much of the public conversation about her life felt entirely out of her control, that little corner of the internet became something she could actually hold on to. After the divorce, both of them rebuilt, separately, but stably. Chris Pratt married author Katherine Schwarzenegger in June 2019 in a private ceremony in Montecito, California. They now have 3 children together. Pratt continued his franchise work while centering his public identity increasingly around family and faith. Anna Faris married cinematographer Michael Barrett in 2021 in a much quieter arrangement, away from the intensity she had spent years navigating. Jack remains the thread connecting his parents, and by all public accounts, they've handled co-parenting with more grace than most divorced couples ever manage. No affair was ever confirmed.
No misconduct.
No single catastrophic moment that broke it apart. What the story reveals, when you strip away every tabloid layer, is something far less cinematic and far more real. 2 people grew in different directions at different speeds while the entire world watched and narrated their relationship back to them in real time. The scrutiny didn't cause the end, but it made everything harder, lonelier, and more complicated than it ever needed to be. And sometimes, the most honest thing you can say about a painful chapter of your life is exactly what Anna Faris said. That you were sad. And that eventually, you found your way through it.